called Kitchener. So today's session, as you can see, is called Your POV is VIP. And we really want to talk to you about the process of what happens when you submit your point of view. Now, I know on the call today, I want to ask, I wonder if everyone who's listening can type in the chat menu if you submitted a POV in wave one. I want to say thank you to you because you're the reason that I am sitting here today. I was so impressed by the articles that I saw, the fact that they came from various countries throughout the world. I saw Denmark, I saw Sweden, I saw different parts of Canada, I saw different parts of the US. I also want to ask, who in the call today supported the publishing effort behind the scenes? I want to thank you too, because of the quality of what I saw, I'm sitting here today. It looked amazing. In fact, in some ways, it was so good, I felt a little bit intimidated. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you guys today. I wanted to talk about how you made me feel. And before we get into it, I want to tell you a little story. So as I mentioned, I come from a small town in the northwest coast of Scotland. And my first foray into writing was kind of haphazard. I was sitting in my English class one day talking, as I love to do, with a colleague when I was supposed to be listening. And my teacher said, Iris, I want you to stay behind at the end of class. And when I went up to her at the end of class, she says, okay, I'm giving you a punishment exercise. I want you to write a one-page essay on a day in the life of something. And I thought, oh God, I don't know how this is going to go. So, and she said, I want it on my desk first thing tomorrow morning. So I went home that night and I was thinking, oh, what am I going to write about? What is, I don't know. I was first year in high school. Equivalent in Canada would be grade 9. And so I decided to write a day in the life of a packet of gum. And I won't elaborate on that story right now, but I wrote it and I brought it back in the morning, brought it into her classroom, I left it on her desk and I walked away. 3 days later or 4 days later, I met a couple of people in our cafeteria and in the playground, and they're like, by the way, that was an amazing story. And these guys were in grade 9, grade 10, 11. But that was an amazing story. And I was like, how do you know about that story? She says, our teacher read it out to us. She read it out to the whole class. And I was like, so surprised. And I was amazed then at the power of writing, the power of words, and the ability to make someone smile and someone think and someone react like a few days later, weeks later. And that's really what we're talking about here. So we wanted to talk a little bit about, of course, this is going to glitch on me here. Okay, yes, here we go. Yes, your insights on why they matter, why your writing pieces matter. Because you have unique perspectives, because you're coming from all over the world, from your city, your country. We want you to be part of the solution. This is your creative opportunity to let your voice be heard and to share your humanity. And based on what I told you about my little story, which was quite insignificant compared to what you guys are doing, but it's important to know that it does matter. The other thing I want to talk about is providing some pandemic context. So basically what we're looking for is some problem that surfaced, a breakthrough, an opportunity to talk about what's happened in your month, 8 months in from how since the pandemic started. So that's kind of what we're looking for. I'm going to turn it over now to Vicky. She's going to talk a little bit about types of submissions.
Great. Okay. Thanks so much, Iris. And thank you for that lovely intro. I think it really captured the effect that we can have on one another's lives just simply by putting our voice into words on paper, in this case, in a digital environment, and maybe in different formats as we go forward. But what we're really looking for in terms of submissions from our POV contributors are essays, essentially. So the written part of it would be essays that are evidence-based. And I love, in your first slide, you said your insights matter. We're looking for insight. And it may be a personal opinion or point of view that you hold that is looking into the future. So you may not have a lot of evidence or research per se to support it, but we're still after your insight. So what does it mean? What does that mean? So you've made this observation, you have this personal insight or this personal way of looking at things, this unique point of view. What does it mean? Why does it matter? So those are the sort of top 2 bullets. And then we have categories and themes that we've pre-sorted and predetermined based on our last publication cycle. And of course, you may come up with something unique and new, and that's okay too. Hold them lightly. I would say, we'll ask you in your submission to choose categories, but you can also hold them somewhat lightly and know that our editing team will look at them and ensure that yours has a home with us. And these essays can be anywhere from 500 words to 1,500 words. So it depends on what it takes for you to explore the theme to your own satisfaction. You may also divide it into 3 separate submissions if you like, starting with a problem and then working it through to some kind of solution. We're also looking for alternate content this time, and this is a new foray for us, but we really want to lean in this cycle into what we call the liminal space, the space where things are unknown and uncertain, which very much captures a lot of what we are living through at the moment with the unknown outcomes of the pandemic. So alternate content, as we're defining it, would be things like poetry, creative nonfiction, future fiction, or any other kind of fiction for that matter, narratives, and then multimedia or art. So video, images that may be evocative to what we call photo elicitation. So that would be the alternate kind of content that we'd be looking for. Go ahead, Iris, thanks.
What was that? Oh, sorry. Vicki, what was that word again? Photo illustration or something?
Elicitation.
Elicitation. Oh, elicitation. Okay.
Eliciting a story from photo images.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. So, so just wanted to talk really briefly just about, writing tends to fall into 4 main categories: the types of writing or the styles of writing. And as you consider your POV, it's really helpful as a writer to sit down. And I have a very similar story to Iris's. Actually, my first published piece was a day in the life of a dime. When I was in like grade 2 or grade 3. But it's to really think about what is the purpose of your piece for? And I find this is I write full time now. So I need to think before I sit down. Is it informational? And am I aiming to share information to educate or enlighten? Is it instructive? Am I trying to teach someone how to do something? Am I trying to persuade or change someone's mind or convince someone of point of view or a perspective or introduce something new for them to think about? Or am I simply conveying experience through narrative and storytelling, or some blend of the above? And I really like the next 3 are sort of the Grey Swan Guild's twist on these, or the deepening of these. If you look at the first 3 especially, we're also sense making. We're trying to derive meaning or patterns in what we're observing. We're trying to shape a sense of the future. What is the post-pandemic world going to look like? That's kind of our mission here. And to problem solve, to really take this sort of informational and instructive these styles and actually create solutions, offer insights and solutions or directions or innovation. So when you're thinking about your POV, kind of think, what am I intending to do with this? What style should I approach this piece of writing with? Okay. How we're going to use it. So our promise to you is that within 2 weeks, your submission will be posted online on our website. Within 1 to 3 months, your submission may be used by our section editors in their publications or productions. So there's a very good chance that, if your insight, especially if it's interesting or exciting or different or innovative, will be picked up to be used in another kind of publication. And I just want to say we're very open-ended about that. Publications could be something that looks like a text, but it may look more like an online webinar. It may look more like a series of interviews. There's different ways that outputs may occur. At some point during the wave in the next few months, our sense makers may use your piece as part of research and events, as an example or an illustration of a point of view, or to support arguments that our sense making and intelligence team are building. And a webcaster or an editor may be interested in interviewing you or asking you for even more context or clarity. So there's lots of opportunities for what you produce now to really live on. And I think we've already proven in our first wave that our articles have a lot of, they have sort of like an evergreen status. The points are still relevant when you go back and read them now. And I think now it's back to you, Iris.
Yeah, thanks, Vicki. So basically the intake process, if you go to our website, greyswanguild.org, and look along the menu bar along the top, you'll see the get involved words, and then you want to scroll down on that page and you'll see contribute an article, and you just click on there. Once you click on there, you'll reach our intake form. You'll notice when you get into the form, it's going to ask you to pick your feeling lens. So there's 5 lenses. We've got live, love, learn, lead, and liminal. So live, is talking about our lives and how they've changed and what's permanent, what can be explored. It's starting to get us to think about how we feel about what's going on. And we're trying to frame what you're writing. So the other word is love. Love is talking more about our feelings, about our family, our humanity, the society, the earth. In other words, things that we love. Next is learn. So we think about what we've learned about this process. Do we have to unlearn and then relearn so that because we're emerging into an unknown future and we need to keep our minds open. Next is lead. We want to think about, we are the leaders of our destiny. We are leaders at home, we're leaders at work, and we're forging into this new unknown. But we are in control of how we think and how we feel about where we're going. And the last lens is liminal. And it's the state that we're currently in. It's the state of transition between what was. Are we lamenting what was, or are we optimistic about what could be? So it's a transitional stage in the process. So you have to pick your feeling lens. So what I'd like you guys to do now, start to think about that. Okay, if you were to pick one of these today, I want you to think about it and hold that thought as we move on to the next slide. The next piece on the form is going to ask you to categorize your thinking lens. And you can see here, we have ecology, income, finance, leadership, consumerism, collaboration, ownership, and of course, other. If you don't feel it's fitting into any of these categories, you can pick your own. Of course, ecology is about balanced growth with finite resources, income, bridging needs and wealth, financial, organizing around the real economy, about industries, markets, and structures. And then we have technology, delivering tech solutions. What's that going to look like? The applications, the ethics, the progress. What about security, cybersecurity? Leadership, rising to new and pressing needs and challenges, the mindsets, the practices, the principles. And then there's consumerism. How are we behaving? Are we connecting to sources of our basic needs and happiness? What are our behaviors? How have they changed? What about commerce, e-commerce, our values? Lastly, collaboration. Are we redrawing competition versus cooperation? Do we have new ideas, networks, participation? And of course, as I mentioned as well, there is the other category if you feel that your thinking lens is not fitting into one of these. What I'd like you to quickly do now, I want you to think, if you were submitting your POV today, I'd like you in the chat menu to think about your feeling lens and your thinking lens, and I'd like you to type in the chat menu what you would pick. The 5 categories of your feeling lens, which look like this: live, love, learn, lead, and liminal. Which one of these would you pick? We won't hold you to it. And then think about your thinking lens. Which one of these would you pick? And type it in the chat menu. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. Good, it looks like we've got a few coming in now. So I'm going to move on and I'm going to turn it back to Vicky.
Okay, just finishing typing on. So one of the things that, as we're talking through thinking about the categories and the L's, what we call the 5 L's, we affectionately call them the 5 L's, for yourself is to find your sweet spot as a writer of a POV. It doesn't mean you have to be a professional writer, but as you're trying to express your point of view in this format. So of course, the Grey Swan Guild has its own editorial voice and mission. We are gathering POVs from around the globe. We're trying to look a bit at the edges. We're trying to look outside of what's being typically covered. But within each piece that you write, it's really important to figure out what's the mission of this piece. What is it that is my sweet spot as the author of this particular perspective? So we want to look, we've sort of got this 3-part Venn diagram here, but what we're looking at is R2. It's the intersection of your experience and expertise. So what you've either been, done, or lived through, or your expertise. What is it that you've actually learned and acquired as skills and knowledge through your lifetime? And then what is the interest of your audience? The Grey Swan Guild has a broad and diverse audience for sure. But you, with your piece, you can think for yourself, what is the audience for my particular piece of writing? Who am I trying to interest? Who am I trying to engage? Maybe it's industry and business leaders. Maybe it's thought leaders. Maybe it's philosophers. Maybe it's other poets. Maybe it's artists. But if you have a sense of your audience and you know your expertise or your area of experience or interest, that intersection will be your sweet spot. And the third part of the Venn diagram that's here is like a knot. It's something that's not been covered to death by everyone. If it's something that you have had, you know that it's out there and people are talking about it. If you have a new twist, a new point of view, a new perspective, some unique way of looking at it, that will put you in that sweet spot. But if you're going to be reiterating the same thing that others have said or are saying, really you're just regurgitating something that we all already know, and it's not going to create as much interest for you or in writing it or for your readers in reading it, for sure. So this is just a little tip. This slide, actually, I want to acknowledge, came from Flywheel, which is a Toronto-based content-driven company. I think some people might know Tara, who runs that company. But I really like the fact that they added like not covered to death by everyone in terms of what really makes it a sweet place to look for in your writing. Again, not to intimidate you, but just to offer some guidance into finding that particular space that you can write in that's different. And I know I write on a lot of topics that a lot of people write on. I write on technology topics a lot, but I have a very unique perspective that I bring that's given me a bit of a sweet spot in the market. And I try to keep that in mind when I approach a new project and think, oh, everybody's talking about this. What can I say that's different? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Sean, I believe you're going to talk to this slide now.
Yeah, I just, oftentimes when I hear people, particularly in wave one, say, you know what, I'd love to write something. It's that first step. I don't know where to start, right? It's like jogging for me. It's that first step out the door that's the tough one. Once you're moving, it's great. And so this was a chart we developed. It's actually a piece of research that we've done. So we've actually got some numerical feedback in terms of where people think the biggest problems are. But on the video or on the slide identified here, there's 39 different problems that the sense-making group thought, you know what, if I think just about the top, problems everybody's talking about, here's 39 of them. And so you could easily look off this list and write to one of them if you wanted to, or certainly go off the board. But we thought it might be an interesting kind of how to do a POV on training wheels by just looking at the buckets of problems that exist out there currently and maybe using that as your starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Sean, you're going to share some insider tips.
Thank you very much. I'm being well coached here, so thank you. I just thought there was a few kind of things that came out through wave one where, people gave us feedback afterward going, look, that was great, but it would be so much better if you did this. And so these were some of them. Certainly the actual writing process, we have a form that works. It's good. Don't think that it isn't, but it's not the best form to actually write in. So don't go to the form and actually start authoring your post in. Maybe do that within a Word file or something separate, and then do the edit, copy, paste, and bring it into the format, the links that we provided you. Visuals, we do ask for visuals, so people get low down in the form and they go, oh, maybe I need a headshot if I'm a new member, or maybe I need some kind of rights-free visual. So think about what are some of those visuals. If you own it, great. If it's rights-free, just as good. But if it is owned by somebody else, there's a challenge there in terms of our ability to use it. We talked about profile picture. And Larry on our chat already has said, well, how do we write something that's emergent when you have to use evidence? And I think the collective sentiment is, loosely based on evidence. It doesn't, the whole thing is not a stats piece, but hopefully there's some kind of thing that you can hang your hat on, or maybe you're challenging existing evidence as your starting point, but there's hopefully something that roots your piece in reality.
Unless it's alternative content.
Unless it's alternative content. Yeah. But I will go back to Vicky's chart earlier that this is something that matters, that people care about, that isn't being written to death. So there is some level of kind of proviso in terms of what we're writing about. In terms of categorizing your submission, as I think Iris so poignantly noted, it's don't sweat over categorizing it. But I think those 5 lenses and the 8 different categories are good kind of segmentation pieces in terms of looking at your stuff. There is a part of our form, I think, that asks about creating a tweet or creating a very small synopsis of what your piece is all about. I think I just helped someone the other day, and it's like, this is like either the headline or the lead, right? So what is the lead of your article? The writing process, I've heard from people it takes 1 hour. Like, I think Greg Sittel, an hour after our wave one, served up a piece. Other people really sweat this and maybe take 6 or 7 hours. That was the range I had seen in our first wave. So if you're allocating your time, try to set up a group of people, 2 to 6 people. I know there's a group of 4 of us that meet occasionally on Wednesday nights and look at what our future piece should look like. And finally, just from a value standpoint, we only had to reject 1, and that person came back and wrote a really good piece afterward. But from a value standpoint, just rants or political views or hateful pieces. I mean, I think it goes without saying. I think the political one, given what we've just experienced, is a tough one to manage. But we're trying to be critical thinking here, and sometimes that doesn't lead down the political avenue. So those were just some of my thoughts from the first go around, Iris.
Okay, great. So Vicky's going to talk to us about what happens behind the scenes after you submit your POV.
Yes, so we've got you, you've put your 1 to 7 hours sitting down at your desk, getting your piece done, and we're putting you now. What happens after you push send in the form? So basically, it will first go to be screened, and all we're really screening for at that step is really, does it meet our editorial standards? So it's a great idea to check out our editorial standards, which are available on the website. First, to make sure that we're going to be in, that your writing is in alignment with what we're looking for. I'm sure for most it will be. There's not going to be a question. It'll also be, we'll be flagging at that point if there's any, kind of problems with the piece at all based on those standards, the kinds of things that Sean just said. And Iris is actually leading our screening team, and she's also going to be working with Elodie Lima, who's going to screen our alternate content, as the first time we've done alternate content. Oops. Can I just have the slide back?
Sorry,
that's okay. So they'll screen, and once it gets through the screening, if in some cases, particularly for those very highly evidence-based pieces or very research-heavy pieces, they may go for a peer review. It may be something that we ask someone else to, and this again is only to enhance the writing, to only add more credibility to it. And so Julie Watkins is heading up our peer review section, and to some degree that section editors in various categories. So those 8 thinking lenses that we showed you and the 5 Ls, we are actually asking to have section editors in those areas to work with whatever the output publications will be from those particular areas. So we have a number of section editors, and there's some space for some new ones if anyone's interested as well. We have a few everyone has signed up. I think somebody needs to mute their mic. It might be Bash, you might need to mute your mic.
Yeah. Anyone that's not speaking, please mute your mic.
Thanks. I could hear like papers or something. So then, but every POV will be edited before it goes onto our website, and I'll tell you in a minute about what we look for in the editing. We'll go through section editors. It'll go through content and design, depending again on the nature of the output. So it may be something that has a high design element, or it may be something where there's not as much design because it's more in the scope of an event or something else. And then there will actually be probably the editorial board will review anything before it actually gets published, but it will then go to be published on our website, and then ultimately be published in one of our other publications or documents, depending on the decisions of the section editors in those themes. So that just gives you a very quick look. I mean, there's lots of things happening in each of those boxes, as you can appreciate. And I really want to shout out to our tech team at this point, who've put together, we think, a really good flow that we're going to be able to use. And we're running it through this was sort of our dream in the last wave, and this is our first time really taking it out and test driving it. So I'm really excited to see this happening. So basically, what do our editors do? So, most people are going to have revised and gone through an editing process already before you submit. I usually say about, 50% of the process is actually revision once you get something on paper. But editors really help to have an impartial perspective on what you've written. And their goal is to be objective, so not to play any kind of favorites in terms of how they look at the pieces, to be honest about their feedback. Really, editors are there. I've done 4 books now, and I have to say, every single time the editors made the books better. They saw things that I didn't see. They were aware of blind spots I didn't have. And really, they can help to make your writing memorable, for the right reasons, not the wrong ones. I love this line. I think this is Sharon's line, you know, because writing can be memorable because it's really bad, or it can be memorable because it's full of errors, but editors really help make sure that your writing shines. And that's really what we want to do. And we see those things that you might not have seen yourself when you're writing it. We make sure that the messaging is clear and that you've sort of chosen the best words to convey your message. One thing that we don't do is try to change the writer's voice. And in our editing approach really is more to the light side than the heavy side. We really want it to be your piece in your voice, reflecting your part of the world. But we want to make sure that you're not embarrassed in any way when it comes out because there were spelling mistakes or grammatical errors or things, areas of accuracy that could have been looked into prior to. And of course that it meets our editorial standards, which is the screening, piece right off the front. Anything else in editing that I need to cover, Sean? Or okay, this is just basically what kinds of editing do we do? We do structural editing, so that just shapes the material to make sure that the organization and the content follows a logical flow. Stylistic, again, is about clarifying meaning, maybe refining language if needed. Sometimes words are used in different ways, and different synonyms are used in certain ways, and they're not always clear. And then copy editing and proofreading, which are basically the sort of line corrections where we make sure that everything's been run through a spell check, that it's complete, that there aren't mistakes in the layout, which typically we do proofreading after the design stage, so that if there's, things that are hanging off of the end of paragraphs or extra letters or that kind of thing, we can catch it, as well as visual errors that might occur or errors that might occur in graphics. So basically that's the editing function.
Okay, so we're going to talk about deadlines. I think Sean's going to talk us through this.
Yeah, I think there's two ones to keep in mind for people that are thinking and planning their lives out. I know our kind of first phase focus was on problems. And so we've got a research piece that is now closed. We are closing that part of the POV that allowed you to submit singularly a problem. So we called it the first of our 3 different phases. And so we've extended that deadline to November 22nd, which is, somebody check me here, but is that next Sunday, I think?
Yes.
Next Sunday, thank you. On the overall POV, so whether it's written, visual, short, long, the second or third phase of submitting something, our final POV deadline is December 8th. And I know people begged and pleaded on our last, it was an insane amount of traffic that we got in the last week of our Wave 1 submission. So if for no other reason than to keep our section editors and proofreaders gamefully employed over the next 3 weeks and not have it become such a traffic jam on the end, if some of you can play the sacrificial lamb of getting your stuff in earlier or much earlier than December 8th, that would be great. And the reason why it's December 8th, outside of naturally Christmas coming up, we are trying to get a few things out before Christmas, and then the wealth of other stuff will happen after Christmas. The other reason would be if you're writing something and we're guaranteeing you to get up on our website in 2 weeks, we can't really guarantee that over the holidays. And so it's much more assured if you can get it in before the 8th.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think this one's mine. I know we had something on the order, if you look at a range of different things that were submitted, there was probably around 80 things that were submitted the first time go around in Wave 1. Where our aspirations are much bigger, some of it with intent. Our guild has grown very successfully over the last 3 or 4 months since Wave 1 closed out. But we're trying to get 500 POVs in. We think it's attainable. We think it's also needed for the amount of documents that we may, and publications that we may want to produce out of this. There may be upwards to 15 different publications that we end up doing. The benefit for you is it's a great way to show friends and colleagues some of the interesting things you're involved in outside of necessarily your workplace. We will give you the profile and input to your intended piece to make it really, as Vicky said, to make it shine. We are about, shining a light on the positive impact on humanity. And so just making a difference and impact on this crisis that most of us believe is either a decade or generation altering interruption / challenge. And then hopefully we can turn your conversation and opinion into something that's perfected and published and maybe turn into webcasts and podcasts and other different things. It's amazing how some of the things that we did in Wave 1 have turned into specific pieces unto themselves. And the benefit of for us is it's a great way to grow the guild. There's no better way to grow a guild than showing people great content that we've done and allowing them to contribute as well. Hopefully we produce enough heft of those things so we can produce those documents I've just talked about. And we have this group, the Catalyst group, that meets every Friday. And we can use that content to make our stuff live and breathe in different places outside of just our website. So places in social media and other places so other people can learn about them too.
Sean, this is yours too.
And yeah, we've just got 3 different punctuation points over the next, call it 2 weeks. My colleague in our sense-making group, Dave Marvitt, is on Wednesday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time, November 18th, is leading a sense-making salon. We'll probably make people aware in that session that POVs are happening there, but it will exercise your sense-making muscles. If you're thinking, wow, I'd love to have some of that type of discernment and pattern recognition for my piece, it's a great way to connect with other people in the guild and also exercise that, that set of skills. Secondly, the editorial board next week will be inviting the editors, but I think on a once every 2 week basis?
Yes, every second Tuesday is our schedule, although we occasionally change it if there's reason to. It would be at 5 p.m. Pacific time for 1 hour. So for anyone who's interested in the editing process or interested in joining the editorial team, we're calling it Foundry right now, which is it's a shared learning opportunity. We want to share skills. We want to talk about how we can all get better at what we're doing here. And really some people are showing up to do this work that haven't done it before. They haven't done it since high school. And so we really want to have an opportunity for shared learning, questions and answers, and to build community for the editorial team that's growing. And so our first one is going to be this Tuesday, and we're talking about editing the POV. So if you're interested, you can jump on the Slack or pop an email over or let us know here, and we'll make sure we get your email and get you the information and the Zoom link to join. So, but our plan is to have them every second Tuesday as the last hour of our editorial board as an open, come on in if you want to talk about editing things editorial.
Wonderful. And then the last thing, this meeting that we're hosting the session in, we're going to at least have 2 meetings over the next 5 weeks that are focused quite heavily on POVs. And we have a PR one next week in terms of getting press releases and getting the exercise of doing this work out in different circles. And then secondly, we will have one close to the deadline that hopefully, starts to get people thinking about how do we actually turn all this great stuff into some other different type of stuff. The last thing I would say is we have what we're loosely calling a connectors event. So those people that have a lot of connections are more than happy to wield that influence, and hopefully we can have a small set. Everybody's invited, but whoever wants to pledge a certain amount of people that they want to bring into this exercise, we want to kind of do it as a collaborative effort and hopefully give each other the confidence to do it and answer any of the questions people may have. So that will probably be happening next Friday.
Okay, that's great. That really ends the content of the presentation. And I wondered if we want to open up to discussion about what we've all been talking about, or anything specific about what anyone's seen. So it sounds like we're pretty quiet.
Sometimes people are saying stuff and they're muted, so there's always that plausibility.
I wonder if we can close the presentation and then we can see.
Yeah, okay.
Hi guys, I have a question. It's Jill.
Yeah.
So I am thinking of submitting a series of art collage kind of pieces, and I was just starting to go through the form, and because I don't know what's involved in every page of the submission, I'm not sure how many things I could submit visually. So if it's like a series of 10 or 20 postcards or something.
So right now the form, you can submit 3, but you can submit more than one form. That would be one way of doing it, Jill. And the other thing I've suggested here is if you have a specific kind of multimedia or alternative content, just talk to us and we can figure out what the best way is to submit that. And then maybe that will be one we can use as a model if others have more than 3 of something like that, that's visual in that way.
Okay.
And
But
Daniel,
I could put them in a PDF, like I could bundle them.
Yeah,
Depending on later, that's one way to submit it as one piece, and then decisions could be made later.
yeah.
That's probably the best way to do it, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we have there was last time, and I'm sure there'll be this time, there's always sort of like exceptions, like something that someone needs that's exceptional. And that's partly why we have the team that we have, is so that we can say, oh, let me troubleshoot that one and figure it out. Yeah. Good question. Yeah. Exciting. Also exciting contribution.
Well, now I have to do it.
Yeah. You do now. You said so.
I'm waiting for an artisanal bread submission from somebody. Just we're all baking nowadays, right? I'd love to see a whole bunch of bread land on our shores.
Land on your doorstep in a box.
Maybe that's a wish.
Pandemic bread.
Well, I think it's great that you're opening it up to alternate forms of submission. I think that's going to be exciting to see what comes through.
I have to Google pandemic bread.
Yeah, I've got a really interesting some YouTube stats on sourdough.
I could do loom knitting. My new hobby.
Multi-medium.
No skill involved. It's very soothing and productive.
Do you have any examples you can show us?
I'm comfortable with this group. I could do that. Sure, I could. What about a video?
Yes, there you go. There's your multimedia submission rate. It actually fits well with one of our themes around Live, Susan. Things that people are doing at home.
Yeah, I've got about 30 looms. I've got like all of these different loom projects and I'm into wool and yarn these days. Okay, thank
sister,
you.
We're gonna have to get together.
Yes.
I will say as well, Iris, with your permission, I think this was such a good kind of half hour, kind of answered most of the questions that we would have as a POV writer, that my hope is we'll just pop this up on YouTube and maybe even make it available on our website as well, just for other people coming in.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Thanks for giving me something to do other than work and reading.
So I guess if we don't have anything else, we might want to end our session.
I just see that Doyle has joined us. Doyle's on the editorial board as well. And maybe I could just take an opportunity to thank the editorial board, which includes Sharon, who couldn't be with us today, Sharon McIntyre. And I would also like to welcome Iris, who will be our newest member of the editorial board, joining us on Tuesday, which gives us gender balance on the editorial board, which I'm thrilled about. And also, we start to build in succession planning. I'm big on succession planning. But Doyle, I just wanted to see, I wasn't sure you were going to be on, and I couldn't see you when the screen was on. So did you have anything to add to what we presented from your perspective on the e-board?
No, it was actually a fantastic presentation, Iris and Vicky and Sean. So I think we should do it again next week and the following week too.
Now that we've recorded it, we can.
I agree, though. I think Doyle is like a special SWAT team. You're 2 days away from writing your POV. The deadline's looming. Like, bring in the left-hander from the bullpen. So
we offer a prize. I'm willing to offer. Actually, I was thinking I could offer a package of books, my 4 books, to the person who gets their first POV in.
Actually, yeah,
that's session and gets their first POV in across the line. The tech team will just have to let me know who it is. I will. Hey,
well, that brings up a good point. We should have like a Grey Swan Guild Writers Club here. I know there's a bunch of authors amongst the group.
Yeah. So we can give prize incentives.
Right.
There's a prize for being first, but not for being last.
Love it. Yes, it is a high equity network.
I win. I'm done.
Oh, look.
Love those.
But I did these a while ago. I'm cheating.
Yeah, I think I saw them on your Facebook, Jill, or did you put them on? Yeah. They're great.
Pandemic cards. Is it backwards?
Oh yeah, no, it looks great. Yeah, great.
The loom.
but I had a question and I wasn't totally clear. So if somebody is not inside the guild, can they submit? Okay.
Yes, of course. Yeah, please. I'm inviting, I think the last Catalyst, Sean, or was it the one before, you and Bosco asked if we could commit to 5 people each to invite. So, and the 5 people on my list, none of them are members of the guild.
Okay.
And I would say just
I'm mad at Susan.
I would say historically too, Jill, I would say that the majority of our Wave 1 contributors became, like, it's almost like it's your stepping stone to becoming a member of the guild. And so we got a lot of people, new people into our guild that way as well. So.
I just worked with a musician who's launching a music video based around the pandemic. I've been doing all her social for her, and I think it'd be a wonderful piece. She's literally, the timing is perfect because she's releasing it like on the 18th.
Great.
It's a really lovely music video and a song she wrote, and so that's cool. Okay.
I think the contributions are going to be more crucial this time too, because the pandemic seems to be raging a little bit more and the numbers are creeping up. And I think everybody out there needs this support that you guys, we all can give. So I think it's going to be really, really important to get these POVs in and the content and the varieties and stuff.
That's good motivation.
Absolutely.
Iris feels particularly excited today because Scotland made it into the European Cup for the first time in like 30 years.
Oh,
so
yeah.
if you detected a slight stride in her.
Yeah, you're smiling, Sean. Anyone that's familiar with Scotland and Scottish football know that Scotland don't do that very often. So that is very historical. I see a lot of my friends on Facebook and they're all going crazy, and it's kind of, yeah, it's quite historical. It'd be like the Toronto Maple Leafs winning the Stanley Cup.
I always think of the movie Braveheart when I think of Scottish soccer. They try hard, but in the end, they did lose pretty badly. So, yeah.
Right. Anyway.
Any other questions or idea sharing?
So I think everyone's pretty quiet now. It's probably because it's Friday evening. But I'd like to thank everyone for the contributions and for participating today. It really means a lot to everyone, the effort that you all put into this process. So it's really worth it.
And thank you, Iris, for pulling this together and coordinating us. And yeah, much appreciated.
Yeah. As on behalf of Jennifer and myself and the new folks we're adding to the Wave 2 leadership, really appreciate the initiative, Iris, Vicky, and Sean, to provide this service. And certainly if there's demand for more live sessions or office hours, you know, I think we can roster to avail ourselves to various people if they need a little one-on-one help at the point of development, or you know, if there's any anxiety about pushing the submit button, to get a little help and extra assurance that, you know, we're all smart, we all have good ideas, we all come from the heart, and there's a social security net through the various stages of editorial in process to make the best of everybody's contributions. So trust the process, as Philadelphia's basketball team might say.
Yeah, and I love working with writers. I'm happy, like, if you want to reach out, please do. And I know from my own experience of many years is you're never done as a writer. It's a craft, you know, it's something can always be better, and working with each other makes it better. So I learn something every time I sit down with another writer, no matter how experienced or inexperienced they are, we're all learning together. And it's to me a really wonderful way of co-creating through word.
And I just add one thing in too, and I think Jill, who's spoken on this this webcast already, did a really cool thing the first time around. In our efforts to get a more diverse and inclusive and a vast set of age ranges, I know Jill had both her daughter, her mom, your daughter, I think, Jill. At least 3 generations of Jill's family were able to contribute something the first time. And having just done a 5 generations event where we had Hazel McCallion, a 99-year-old former mayor, and an 18-year-old woman who's attending USC college. I thought the combination of that range of different voices was really interesting. And my hope is if you've got family members or people that have never been published before, this is I get a real kick out of seeing people publish for the first time and seeing their work come to life. So that's just another thing I would throw in.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll throw in, if you're stuck for, where do I find my own insight or my point of view, look inwardly first in terms of your own expertise. Consider the possibility that thousands of people end up reading your contribution, and maybe that gives you a secondary benefit as well. So, if you're an expert in consumerism, feel free to write about consumerism as your first or your second or your third POV. You have the options to explore new areas beyond your usual scope and comfort zone, but you can also lean in on what you do best and present yourself to the world with that own internal subject matter expertise.
Mm-hmm.
We're all marketing ourselves in the guild economy for the next decade, so take advantage of the opportunity to present yourself to the world beyond your own world.
Mm-hmm.
Iris, do you want to close this out?
Yeah, okay. So I think that's how we're going to end this session now. So thank you, everyone. I found this helpful. Like I said in the beginning, it's your POV is VIP. So it's important that you make the effort, and we really appreciate it. So have a great evening, and thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Enjoy the weekend.
Yes.